these companies better wake up, because as I've said before, and as our bargaining committees have said before, this is a deadline, it's not a reference point. Hey UAW family, good to see you. I'm gonna take a minute here and wait for a few seconds, let some more people get on. Good to see everybody, thanks for joining in. Just looking at the list here of people that are giving shout outs, and a lot of locals here. Hey Robert in Local 10 retiree, how's it going brother? Hope you're enjoying that retirement. Hey Local 685 back in Kokomo. I see Mitch on here already asking about the arbitration in Lordstown, and let me assure you brother, that's being worked on with our legal team. We've been checking on that status. You know, as always, the corporations try to tie these things up legally with appeals and things. So it's being, trust me, it's a huge priority, obviously. It's just one more example of how our members, you know, and how GM failed our members, you know, in the promises they made. One in a long line of promises that they failed to honor in their commitments. Hey, Local 31, Local 598 in Flint, Local 900, Chantel, how you doing? Neil, how you doing? Victor, how's it going, brother? See Jules from Local 14. We'll give it a few more seconds here and we'll get rolling, so. Hey, Christina, Local 140, holding it down at Warren Truck. Hey, Ron, how you doing, buddy? In Local 600, down at the Rouge. One other thing I wanted to give a shout out to is all of our UAW family up at Black Lake this week, all of our veterans. I like this, I picked this shirt to wear today. Unfortunately for the women's conference last week and the veterans conference this week, I wasn't able to make it up there because for us, bargaining is the #1 priority right now. And but definitely want to give a shout out to all the women that were holding it down last week. Had a great women's conference, and Secretary Treasurer Mock and the great work they did with the women's meeting, and give a huge shout out to all our veterans up there this week at Black Lake. You know, hope you all have a good week and a fruitful week up there, and look forward to getting in a fight with all of you. So we'll go ahead and get rolling here. So, you know, UAW family, I want to start out, have some information to share with all of you about Big Three bargaining. But first, I want to share some updates from around the country. As many of you know, our unions supported 4,800 researchers at the National Institutes of Health in their fight for a union and for a fair and just contract. And I'm excited to announce that the National Institutes of Health has dropped its objections to their union election, which means that a vote will be set soon. Not only is this the largest federal union drive in over a decade, but when these NIH workers succeed in winning their union, they will have successfully formed the first union of early career researchers at a U.S. federal agency. So congratulations to these NIH workers, UAW organizer Lydia Mazur and Region 8 Director Tim Smith, who are successfully showing all of us what it looks like to build worker and political power. I also want to highlight our members who are taking the most powerful action possible as workers. They're out on strike right now. Our sisters and brothers in Local 2326 in Dayton, New Jersey have been on strike at West Rock since early June. They're standing up to a CEO who wants to gut their health insurance even while he continues to rake in over $20 million a year. They're standing strong, and we're standing with them. And out in Newton, Iowa, our members at Local 997 aren't backing down in their strike at Thombert. The company keeps pumping out anti-union propaganda instead of getting serious about bargaining. So we're making sure Thombert strikers can go one day longer and one day stronger. Region 4 also has set up a strike support fund at their Facebook page. So if you go to the UAW Region 4 website, click on the Facebook page, and the donation info is right at the top. I also want to take a moment to give a shout out to some other unions that are holding the line for the working class. As you know, the Writers Guild and Screen Actors Guild are both currently on strike, and their fight's very similar to our own. The studios that employ writers and actors have made a killing in recent years, using the profound changes underway in their industry and new technology, sound familiar, to undermine union standards. The result is writers and actors are working more and being paid less, really similar to what we're going through. This has been great for the employers who are making incredible profits, but many of the people who make the shows and movies we love are barely getting by. So some people might not think that writers and actors have a lot in common with auto workers, but we do. Auto workers are fighting to maintain our standards and win job security in the transition to electric vehicles. Writers and actors are fighting for the same in the transition to streaming. And all of us are at war with corporate greed and with companies that are prioritizing profits over people. So from Detroit to Hollywood, employers are using technology and new products as a smokescreen to drive down wages and working conditions. That's why I want to say to the writers and actors on strike, the UAW stands with you. Your fight is our fight. We have your backs, and just as those of you keep holding the line for all of us, we know you have our backs, we have your backs. So moving on to our fight at the Big Three, it's been 2 weeks since I presented our members' demands to the Big Three. That's 2 weeks since we made your priorities clear to the employers. Even the White House has taken notice of our demands. Yesterday, President Biden released a statement saying that he stands with us in our fight to make sure that the Big Three's joint venture battery plants have the same strong pay and safety standards that generations of UAW members have fought for. The White House agrees with us that Big Three profits should be invested in collective bargaining agreements that lift up auto workers, our families, and our communities. Yet the Big Three are continuing to act as if this round of negotiations is going to be business as usual. GM has responded to our demands by saying that our demands for fair wages, cost of living, retirement security, and more paid time off are a threat to our collective future. Stellantis even went further. COO Mark Stewart wrote a patronizing letter to our members saying we need to tone down our demands in the name of economic realism. We later learned from media reports that Stewart wrote that letter from his second multi-million-dollar mansion in Acapulco, Mexico, where he spent the last 2 weeks vacationing rather than bargaining. That's the economic realism that companies want us to accept. They make billions in profits and millions in executive salaries while the rest of us live paycheck to paycheck. Let's take a moment to think about that. The fact is, labor costs are a fraction of what goes into the price of a car. The vast majority of the Big Three's expenses don't go to labor. They go to parts, retooling, distribution, repairs. Many experts estimate labor is just between 5 and 10% of the cost of a car. So in the past 3 years, according to the Washington Post, the cost of a new car has gone up by 20%. That's not because of labor cost. In the past year, Stellantis has had the highest profit margin of any major automaker out there, union or not. And that's not because of labor cost. As in the past months, the Big Three have cried about how EV transition is going to be too expensive. I repeat again, it's not because of labor cost. The last 10 years have been the most profitable in Big Three history. They've collectively made $250 billion in North American profits over the last decade. But instead of investing that profit in us, the workers who made it, they've squandered it on giveaways to the rich investors and the CEOs. In the last 4 years, the Big Three spent about $16 billion collectively on special dividends, stock buybacks, and supercharged CEO salaries. That's billions of dollars lavished on shareholders and executives rather than the workers who make these companies run. We've been breaking our backs while the Big Three have been breaking the bank. The Big Three can afford to share their record profits with the auto workers who make this industry run. They just don't want to. Sorry about that. I had to wet my whistle there. But that's why we're undeterred in our demands. No matter how company executives or their lackeys in the media try to distort them, some in the media claim that our union is engaged in class warfare. It's hard when I hear that not to just die laughing, because the truth is, the working class in this country has been under attack in a one-sided class war for decades. Just as UAW President Doug Frazier wrote all the way back in 1978 when I was 10 years old. He stated, I quote, "I believe leaders of the business community, with few exceptions, have chosen to wage a one-sided class war today in this country. A war against working people, the unemployed, the poor, the minorities, the very young, and the very old, and even many in the middle class of our society." End of quote. Those words are even more relevant today than they were in Frazier's time when I was 10 years old. Over the last 20 years, we've seen 65 plants close. That's 65 communities and local economies gutted by the loss of thousands of jobs. That's thousands of families ripped apart as loved ones had to travel long distances, sometimes all the way across the country, to continue working. Most of these closings did not happen during hard times when the economy was slow and the companies were struggling. They happened when the companies were prosperous in the best of times. Even now, the last 4 years, the companies have been making record profits, yet they continue to hold our families and our communities hostage. GM's comment about how our demands threaten their ability to do what is right for the long-term benefit of the team is just a thinly veiled threat to kill jobs because employees have the courage to demand what we are owed. In fact, GM's led the way over the last 20 years by closing more plants than any other domestic automaker. GM has shipped thousands of jobs to Mexico and other countries where they can even further exploit the destitute and downtrodden, paying pennies on the dollar to work in horrific conditions. Workers at GM's plant in Silao, Mexico, are making about $3 an hour. They'd have to work full-time for 9 years straight to earn enough money to buy the vehicle they produce. So we know none of them are going to ever buy a vehicle in their life. That's criminal, and it's why we need to support those workers in Silao and everywhere in their fight against GM, because it's a race to the bottom that can always go lower. And there is no end to how low the Big Three will go in the name of competitiveness. And in all that time, the cost of vehicles they only worship at the altar of profit. And yet nobody in that media is calling that class warfare. We're currently living under the most prosperous period in Big Three history, and yet we are attacked as unrealistic for demanding the elimination of tiers. By that logic, tiers are never going to end. The media and the CEOs are trying to make tiers out to be inevitable. But we know they're not, because they can end because we're going to end them. The Big Three CEOs have seen their own pay increase on an average of 40% over the last 4 years. And nobody in the media was saying that's outrageous. The only thing they see and the only thing they say is outrageous is when workers who made those profits possible demand the same. We live in the richest country in the history of the world, yet we are attacked for demanding pensions and more paid time off. So when CEOs or talking heads say we're engaging in class war, know that what they really mean is that they can't stand the fact that we're finally fighting back and refusing to keep scraping by paycheck to paycheck. The corporate elite and the billionaire class are terrified because they know we're waking up to their double standards. Like how companies love to socialize their losses and privatize their profits. During hard times, companies like the Big Three get massive taxpayer bailouts. Meanwhile, workers are told to give up their pensions, give up their vacations, give up their pay raises, give up their standard of living. Then when the times are good again, we're told to just accept the scraps they give us. They're also hypocrites on the issue of absenteeism, which is another issue that just really pisses me off. Many of you might have seen that I was recently on a live stream with U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders and 3 rank and file members from each of the Big Three. One of those members was Michelle Collins, a GM worker whose plant went into critical status, and she described having to work 90 straight days, 12-hour shifts, with no days off. She had no time for church, no time for her family or friends, and no time for her own sanity or well-being. The big three are not only robbing us of our profits, they're robbing us of our lives and our health. We are literally being worked to death. So right now, as we speak, Stellantis has multiple plants under critical status, and thousands of workers are being forced to work for 90 straight days. Meanwhile, as I said earlier, Stellantis COO Mark Stewart has the nerve to lecture us about absenteeism in bargaining when he's personally been MIA from bargaining the last 2 weeks because he was vacationing at his newly purchased multi-million-dollar mansion in a resort Mexico town. So I'm not going to accept the economic realism of the status quo. And your national negotiators sure as hell aren't going to accept it either. They've been working around the clock to negotiate with the companies. But UAW family, I'm going to be honest. Progress right now is slow. It's too slow. Today marks 30 days until our contract expires, and yet we're still bargaining over non-economics at all three companies. That's unacceptable. The big three need to get serious, and they need to get down to business, and it's our job to make them do it. That's why starting now, we're directing big three locals across the country to schedule a strike authorization vote as soon as possible and to communicate the results of the vote to the International by the end of the day on Thursday, August 24th. It is critically important that everyone votes and that everyone votes yes to authorizing a strike should one need to be called. This isn't just a strike vote. It's a demonstration of our strength. It's a sign of our unity, and it's a statement about our resolve. So if we want to make progress at the bargaining table, we need to show the companies that it's not just talk. It's not just your national negotiators demanding progress, but it's 150,000 auto workers working behind them. That means getting out the vote in your plants. It means putting rally signs in your car windows, organizing parking lot rallies, and practice pickets. It means all of us together sending a message to the big three CEOs. The choice is yours about what happens next. Either stop dragging your feet in negotiations or be prepared to strike. As I've said repeatedly, September 14th is a deadline, not a reference point. So I'm asking rank and file activists all around the country to do everything you can do to get organized in your plant. And to help support you, our National Organizing Department is putting together weekly virtual trainings that will walk you through how to organize actions at your workplace. The first training is this Friday, and if you want to receive an invite, all you have to do is fill out one of the contract campaign support cards. I know you've heard me talk about these several times over the past 2 months. These cards are how we show the companies and how we show each other that we are united to win a strong contract. You can fill one out if you haven't got one in your plant yet, digitally by going to uaw.org. Everyone who fills out one of these cards should receive a text and an email from your union asking you if you want to attend one of the upcoming trainings. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. This is our generation's defining moment, and make no mistake, management's watching. The big three CEOs are watching. The White House is watching. The world is watching. So we need to get organized and get mobilized and show the world what solidarity looks like. We are 30 days away, and the clock is ticking. So I know I'm excited. I know your negotiators are working hard, and I know talking to a lot of you that you guys are ready to rock. So I'm going to get on the comments here now. I appreciate everybody for taking the time out, and let's see what some of you have to say here. Let's get strike ready. Mark Stewart's definitely watching. Yeah, he's probably still down in Mexico. Give me a second here. There's a lot of comments. Just trying to glance through here. See a lot of positive comments, and that's what's great about this. We see our membership really coming together like never before. I agree, Brother Wilson. Let's strike, because it's been years of talking. It's time to show we're not going to tolerate the abuse. And if these companies choose to take that course, then we're going to oblige them. I see the comment again about pensions, and it's a big one. The talking heads keep wanting to bring up, talking about how pensions are a bad thing. Pensions are not a bad thing. Retirement insecurity in this country is one of the biggest problems facing us. Everybody deserves a decent standard of living, and I've said it over and over. In the words of Walter Reuther, our workers they get too old to work and too young to die, and there's got to be a decent standard of living for them at the end of their work life. Glancing through here. Bring on the signs, you bet. Got plenty of these things, and we're trying to get them out to people. Record profits equal record contracts, and we're united for a strong contract. So I'm really excited about what's coming. Really excited to see the energy from all of you. Everyone needs to say yes to a strike vote. Amen to that. I see a comment from Local 292 in my hometown of Kokomo and GM, where there used to be 15,000 GM workers, and there's about 70 left now. Shame on GM. They used to make the chips there and the semiconductors, and in 2017, GM chose to ship that work to China. That worked out really well for them, didn't it? Let's hope people get out and vote. A lot of great comments here. I mean, this is our time. It's our defining moment, and just trying to glance through here, see if there's any more comments or. This is our year, you bet. Will there be an extension on the contract? We don't plan an extension on the contract. September 14th is the deadline, so we'll see what happens when we get to that point. Like we've told the companies, it's in their best interest to get down to business. And, it's a shame that one of them's choosing to take vacations and stuff rather than focus on the members' issues. I see a new member here that's just new to the union on March 22nd. It's their first contract with Kentucky Truck Plant, and just nervous about what's coming. You got nothing to be nervous about. You know what? That's what a union's all about. We're all in this together. Your members are going to stand beside you. It doesn't matter if you're temporary, if you're full-time, what your status is. That's what this contract's about. It's about bringing everybody, ending tiers, and bringing everybody to an equitable future so we can all have a good standard of living. And that's what this fight's all about. Don't be nervous, be excited. We've got a long way to go in this, and no matter what it takes, we're going to last one more day longer than any of these companies are. And so stand strong and lean on your brothers and sisters. I see a comment about Canada being behind the UAW, and yes, we've met with Unifor's leadership. We've been talking with them, and we're all united. They began their fight on the 10th, so we're all in this together, and we got a long way to go. Hey, Local 2209, good to see you. All right, well, I appreciate all the comments and stuff, and like I said, just want to do a quick update again, and like I said, really want to touch base, especially about the strike votes coming up, so be sure and spread the word among your coworkers. When your local puts out the information to have your strike votes, get out there and vote. Let's all vote yes, and let's show these companies how united we are, and that we're done taking the crap and the scraps they want to feed us. So thank you, everybody, and let's keep on rolling. Thanks.